Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Mark from Guitar Guts here, and today I'm going to show you my method for painting crackle paint jobs. I do a lot of crackle paint jobs and a lot of paint jobs on guitars in general around here. So today I'm going to show you my step-by-step method on exactly how I do mine. And for the base coats, we'll be using a Rust-Oleum 2X color, which is going to be navy blue on this guitar. And then we're going to be going over it with some crackle paint. We're going to throw white crackle on this one. So let's head out to the spray booth and I'll show you how we do it. Links to the paint and the supplies that I used in this video will be listed down in the description. First things first, when you're going to be painting something like this, is you need to go into a well-ventilated area somewhere outside, but also somewhere slightly covered and protected from the elements. You don't want to be getting dust or bugs or any kind of stuff like that, hair that's flying through the air, pollen. All that's going to stick to your paint job and pretty much ruin what you're doing. Another thing is you want to cover up, especially with crackle paint. Crackle paint is more potent than regular paint, so even when I'm doing regular paint, I always wear long sleeve clothes, gloves, respirator mask, very, very important, not a dust mask because that's not going to really protect you from the harmful fumes and the chemicals and the vapors that come through from spray paints, and even long pants. You don't want to be getting this stuff all over your body. There's toxic chemicals in it and your skin can absorb it. So over the long term, it's best to cover up completely when you're spraying anything out, but especially with crackle because it's some nasty stuff. You'll smell it when you start to spray it, that it is nasty. Another thing is you're going to want to make sure that you mix your paint really good. Shake the can really good for 2 minutes, flip it upside down, shake it, have it upright and shake it. Shaking the can's a big part of getting a good consistent flow on your spray paint. Now for my base coats, I'm going to be using navy blue Rust-Oleum 2X paint, and they recommend that you paint between 50 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's very important for dry times. We're going to do 3 coats, and in between each coat we're going to let it set for about 7 to 8 minutes. If you wait too long, the paint's not going to bond to the former coat, and it's not going to give you the desired effect. So you want to make sure that your drying time and all that is very scientific, and also the temperature, the humidity, all that stuff affects it. So if it's really humid outside, you don't want to be painting, you want to do it when it's below 60% humidity or so. So we're going to do 3 coats, 7 to 8 minutes apart, of base coat to start out. After the 3 base coats of color, we're going to let it sit for 45 minutes as per the instructions on the can. They say you can wait up to 24 hours, but I think it's best to do it as soon as you can. So 45 minutes after you lay down your last base coat. And they recommend that you paint between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Be aware of overspray. I'm painting inside an 8x10 shed that I have here next to my house. And I close up the doors, make sure that there's no dust coming in. Make sure that if you're going to be doing it, you're not doing it right next to your house or anything important, because overspray will be going everywhere and you don't want to be covering everything in, dust of the color that you're going to be spraying. Now let's get into it and lay down our first base coat of navy blue. In the spray booth here, I have a thermometer. It's 68 degrees Fahrenheit with 46% humidity, so we're right in that sweet spot for these paints. When you're spraying, you want to get a nice uniform coat with a 50% overlap, which means as you spray one way to the left, you want to come back to the right and hit partially over the same spot you just sprayed. It's a technique so that you get a wet edge, a nice thick coat of paint. You don't want it to be so thick that it's running, so there is an art to it. But you need to make sure that you create a wet edge, which means as you move across the guitar, you could see there's no dry spots. You're not going over the same spots multiple times after it starts to dry. You're continuing on in one direction. When I spray a guitar, I always like to start with the edges of the guitar first, then I come around to the back, and then over to the front. That way you get a nice consistent spray. You're not crossing back and forth in different sections of the guitar, and it creates a wet edge. Alright, now the first coat is on, and I'm going to wait about 7 to 8 minutes. I have my timer set already, and then I'm going to go in there and spray my second coat. Now it's time for coat number 2. Alright, the second coat is now on, and I have my alarm on my phone set. You can see it's counting down. We got about 6 minutes to go until the third coat. And for the first coat, I went a little bit lighter. The second coat, I always lay it on a little heavier, and the third coat is going to be the heaviest of all 3 coats. I also like to set my timer for the conservative time of 7 minutes, even though it's pretty cool outside, and I said I can go 7 to 8 minutes in between coats. But once the alarm goes off and you walk over, get your gloves on, get your mask back on, all that takes about a minute, maybe even a little bit more. So we're probably looking at about 8 minutes in between coats on this one I'm doing here. especially since the temperature is a little lower. You can let it go a little longer in between coats. If it was a little warmer, closer to 80 or 90 degrees Fahrenheit, I would say you'd want to cut your time down maybe by a minute or so. But all this is just experience. You need to experiment and you need to just learn how these paints work in different environments. So right now we got about 5.5 minutes and we'll head back in there for coat number 3. Alright, I just finished with the third coat of the navy blue base, and I'm going to wait 45 minutes until I spray on the crackle color. So they say on the can that you can go 45 minutes up to 24 hours later and spray your crackle on and you'll get a good crackling effect, but the longer you wait, in my experience, the smaller the crackling is. So I'm going to do it right at 45 minutes, and I've already got my timer set here, so I'll head back out to the spray booth in about 45 minutes, and we'll throw that crackle on. When you apply the crackle paint, you want to lay it on as heavy as you can, almost to where it's dripping. That's going to give you bigger crackling. If you want the small crackling, lay it on a little bit lighter, but obviously I'd recommend doing some experimentation first. Get some pieces of wood, sand them so that they're really flat and smooth. If there's texture on your wood, it's not going to work as well. And also, crackle paint doesn't work with every single type of base color. If you're trying to use like a metallic color or some type of metallized paint or fluorescent paint, likely it is not going to crack. So you need to use like a high gloss Rust-Oleum 2X or Krylon or something that's going to be a gloss paint. It doesn't like flat colors, and sometimes it doesn't even crackle. So you're going to want to practice on some test pieces, get some experience with it, learn how the product works, and then put it on your guitar. I always recommend trying to find some cheaper guitars that you can get from friends or family or used in the used market, like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, eBay Reverb, anything you can to get some practice in before you start doing it on a guitar you really care about. Alright, it's now been 45 minutes. The blue paint is probably pretty dry and it's ready for the crackle. So I'm gonna suit back up in the painting gear and head out to the spray booth right now. The way that you apply the crackle paint is important. You can see I'm going over real thick, one heavy coat, and I'm not really traveling back over spots I've already painted. Once I'm done with the side there, we'll move on to the bottom edge, to the back, and to the front. The crackle paint dries really fast, so you don't want to spray back over it while it's already drying. Here you can also see that I'm using an air compressor to assist it in drying quicker, and that's supposed to give it a larger crackle. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Alright, and there you have it. The guitar is sprayed, the crackle came out really cool and unique. It didn't come out 100% uniform, wasn't the biggest crackling. I laid it on super thick, as you guys can see. I even got a couple of drips in there. But overall, it came out with a lot of character. And I like them when they're not fully uniform and they have these weird little areas on them. As long as it's not small crackling, that's the thing I don't love. So this is what I would call medium crackle. If you guys have any tips or tricks, leave them down below. If you've never done crackle before, I encourage you to try it. But with crackle, you kind of get what you get. Sometimes it comes out exactly how you hoped, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you have to let the paint cure, sand it down, and redo it again if you're looking for a very specific look. But what I found is if you're doing a crackle guitar for yourself, then embrace the unique, non-uniform pattern that you get. I think that's what makes these things really cool and different from each other, is that you never get the same crackle pattern twice. But if you have any tips, if you've done this before and you know how to get larger crackle or smaller crackle, or you have tips for people, leave them down in the comments below. Let's help everybody out. Let's get the community involved with this one and get your guys' tips. If you've never done it before and you have an idea of what might work or not, feel free to leave a comment, but let people know you've never actually done it before, because experience is everything with painting. Alright, it didn't come out 100% perfect, but that's one of the things that makes Crackle unique and cool, is that every single one of them is different. I've done 15 guitars or so with Crackle by now. Here on the can, Montana says the thicker the base coats, the larger the crackling effect is going to be. So that's a tip and a guideline to go by, but I laid it on pretty thick there. We got some big crackle, we got some smaller crackle, so that's not going to always work. I think also what goes into it is the chemical makeup of the paint in the base coats. So certain brands and certain colors use different chemical makeups than others, and you're going to get larger crackle. I've consistently had better luck getting large crackle with red paints using Rust-Oleum 2X, but certain colors I've had mixed results with, so I'm not exactly sure. But Montana recommends using Montana brand paint before as your base coats, and I'm not sure 100% if they're just trying to sell more paint to you, or if there's something to that, but I have tried Montana White as my base coat. That's their line. They have different color names for their different paint lines, and I haven't had better results that way. I've also tested using like a 2K clear in between my color and my crackle, and I didn't get a big difference with that either. So I think if you want real big crackle, the best way to go is using a gun and using some type of non-aerosol crackle paint. I think you're gonna have better results that way for larger crackle. When you use an aerosol of anything, there's a lot of other things in the can besides paint. They have to use thinners and different solvents to make the paint spray through this cap. It comes out a lot thinner than it would if you were using an HVLP or some type of compressor run spray gun. They say it can be top coated with a clear coat 24 hours after the crackle. So don't get excited and throw your clear on in the same day. Wait at least 24 hours, possibly longer, to let it fully cure. They also say to get larger and even more crackling out of it, wait 5 minutes and throw another coat of crackle over it. Although I've done that before and I didn't have better results. Usually it comes out with similar or even sometimes smaller crackle. As you can see out there, there was a couple of things. I was using the air compressor to accelerate the drying of the crackle. They say that can give you larger crackle, but you want to keep your air pressure real low, like 5 psi or possibly as little as possible, and keep your spray nozzle kind of far back. There was a couple spots out there I was hitting it with the air, and it actually lifted the crackle paint off. So I reapplied in those little spots and it came out looking pretty good, but it didn't improve the look of the crackling by adding it a minute or two or a couple minutes after letting the first crackle paint dry. So usually what I typically like to do is do one thick coat of crackle and not touch it. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, check out some of these other videos that we have here on the channel. I have a lot of tutorial videos, and I have a Patreon account where you can sign up and get all kinds of tips, and you can gain access to the Guitar Guts Discord channel where we talk about modifying guitars and painting guitars and affordable tools and parts, and when good guitars come up for sale on the used market, we share them. So go check it out, go sign up. Links are in the description. Hit that subscribe, hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. Rock on, my friends.